and moderator Renuka Patel, Managing Editor, Forbes Africa. 20 minutes.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. I've been quite blessed today to get very tall panelists. I had two very tall panelists in the morning and two in the afternoon. So these two panelists here with me today, they're from different sectors, but have many things in common. They both have the New York connection. They both have the West Africa connection. Kylie comes to Ghana very often. Georgie, supermodel, she is from Burkina Faso, which is also in West Africa. And they're both into impact investing, and they're emotionally invested. That is the right word to use, emotionally invested in what they're doing. And what are they doing? They're pushing for basic human rights and that fall under the Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs, which is access to clean, safe drinking water, and access to basic quality education. So these are the similarities that they both have. And the other big factor, their focus on communities, serving the communities that they're in, collaborating, and building partnerships as a way forward. So let me come to you, Kylie. You're sitting to my left. Let me get to the numbers first. So Kylie operates, she oversees 601 schools around the world. So as the CEO of Pencils of Promise, she oversees these schools and she offers high quality education to the vulnerable, to children who, who have operated so far in dilapidated buildings or, studying under the mango tree. These are the people that she has uplifted. She's providing quality education to them. She's also operating schools in Laos and Guatemala. So in Africa, she comes to Ghana very often. So Kylie, I want to ask you, we've heard about Kenya, Nigeria, Botswana, Namibia. We had government leaders from all of these countries earlier today. Why Ghana? What's your focus on Ghana? Why not anywhere else on the continent? But let's start with Ghana.
Hear me? Yeah, here we go. The organization that I lead, Pencils of Promise, as you said, we focus our efforts in Ghana, Guatemala, and Laos. We wanted to make sure that we had an impact on the continent because there are students here that lack primary school education, that lack that basic access to human rights. In Ghana in particular, as we see children matriculate, they drop out as they move on in school, and we wanted to make sure that students in Ghana had opportunity, had access to freedom, to liberation, to achieving their hopes and their dreams. We heard so much today, and thank you so much for having me here and having the opportunity to meet with these incredible entrepreneurs and listen to so much of what I've learned today. And I will say that talent is equally distributed to everyone, but opportunity isn't. And there are places in the world where we must focus to ensure that our young people have the opportunity to become entrepreneurs, to become investors in the world. And so in Ghana in particular, we focus in areas in rural communities where students often, as you said, learn under mango trees. They don't have the basic infrastructure in order to maintain a healthy school environment. In other areas, the schools are not set up very well, and so we want to make sure that students feel safe in the classroom. We also realize that students need more than that, more than just a building. We can build a building and the building can be empty. Students, if we reflect on our lives and our schooling and what made an impact for all of us, we know that school includes teachers that speak our language, that make us feel comfortable and engaged in the classroom, that have the competencies to teach us to be on school grade level. We need basic things like a bathroom. that are private. We need running water. We need tools and resources. We need books. We need to be educated not just in reading and writing. We need to be educated in health. And so we're able to bring all of that. And Ghana is very important to us because we also see the impact of our girls in Ghana and ensure that the gender parity is there and that girls are able to matriculate as well.
And we'll move on to that, the bit about how you're receiving even support from the government of Ghana in this endeavor. So, Georgie from Burkina Faso. So, Georgie in 2004, she was Miss Burkina Faso. Then she was Miss Africa in 2004. But there is a very interesting story preceding that. I was talking to Georgie last week. I had a very interesting Zoom conversation. And she said, you know, she used to fetch water. I'm going to let you speak, but let me just put the, lay the foundation. She used to spend 3 hours every day as a school kid. She'd be woken up at 6 in the morning while her brothers slept. She fetched water from the well. She walked 3 hours to fetch water. It was a physical exercise. These buckets were heavy, and she would cry in the morning and wake up the entire neighborhood. But she still had to do it. So she had this raging question in her. Why do we have to fetch water? Why are the girls doing this, right? And then many years later, she wanted to break out of the cycle of poverty. She decided to take a flight out from Burkina Faso to Paris, and she started a supermodeling career. So in many ways, she's a role model now, not just a supermodel, she's a role model to other girls in her country. Again, the numbers. This is a country of 22 million people. She has reached, through her initiative, her foundation, she's managed to reach 340,000 people with clean water in Burkina Faso. And her aim is to reach 5.2 million people in the entire country by 2033. So let's hear it from Georgie.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much, Renuka. I would like to express my gratitude for Forbes and my partner knew the impact for having me. You say most of it, but I will start again from the beginning. What inspired me to actually start the Georgie Badiel Foundation is because as a child, I used to walk 3 hours to fetch water with my grandmother. Fetching water wasn't something that I like because I am not a morning person. So every morning at 6 a.m., my grandmother will come at the door, she will knock the door and let's go get water. That is when I knew that it wasn't right. It wasn't right because it was so early. I needed to sleep longer. And what was making even the journey difficult is that my cousin boys, everybody, all the boys were sleeping. As I grew, I was fortunate to become Miss Burkina Faso in 2003, then Miss Africa 2004. After that, I had the opportunity to go to Paris to start an international modeling career. Living in Paris was amazing, I would say. I have a great life. I could take a bubble bath anytime I want. Until my sister told me that she was having a baby. I was excited about the news. I decided to go home to welcome my nephew. Unfortunately, when I get home, I have to watch my sister wake up between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. to get water. That is actually when I knew that nothing has changed home. As a kid, we have to do that. Now we women. Nothing changed. So I founded the Georgie Badiel Foundation in 2015. And what makes the Georgie Badiel Foundation innovative in what we do is that we train women how to fix their own wells. Burkina Faso have over 5,000 broken wells. Imagine that. How much money was put into this project? But unfortunately, no one thought of giving the community the basic knowledge to fix these wells. Building wells is engineering. So what we basically did is we broke down the cost of engineering to teach these women how to fix their own wells so that they can save time for themselves, to gain an education if they want, to start a small business and take care of their family.
Wonderful. There are more interesting anecdotes which I'll try and get out of Georgie soon. Kylie, she's talked about modeling and fashion, but you trained to be a musician. You wanted to be a singer. Yes. And then you came into education, and there was a stint in politics. Can you just take us through that journey a little bit?
Yes, I did classically train to be a singer. I thought I was going to be a famous singer, and that was my aspiration. I loved it. I thought I was supposed to share that gift that I had to help the world feel better, because I enjoyed music so much when I was feeling sad. But when I grew up in New York. I grew up in Queens, and growing up, I did a lot of things in my community. I volunteered a lot. I worked a lot with children. I worked with elders. I worked in hospitals, and I volunteered a lot of my time when I was very young. And then as I got older, I started getting involved in politics. And even before I was old enough to vote, I would work with politicians to tell others about what they did and what they offered and how they could change their communities. And that really sparked something inside of me. I realized that, well, first, I was born with this feeling of responsibility for my community and in making a difference. And then I realized that I had a lot of power as a person, that I could affect change, maybe in one person's life, or maybe in a community, or maybe in my state, in my country, or maybe in the world. And when I realized that, I wanted to dedicate my entire life to fixing a lot of the problems that I saw in the world, because I knew I had the power to do that. And I knew that there were other people just like me. And if I found those people and engaged with those people and built community with those people, as I built community when I was 13 and 14 and 15, then I could change the world. And before I got there, I could change lives every single day. And so what I do, and what I've always done, so I started this work when I was about 20 years old. I'm a little older than 30, maybe 32. But when I started my work, I realized that this was a gift that I could, when I felt sad, when I saw the world, and I realized that there were things about it that I didn't like, that humanity did to ourselves, to each other, that I could fix, I could help. And it could make it better, even if it's better that day, even if it's better that year. But the truth is, it's better forever. Because when we are able to provide water, when we are able to build a school, we change communities for generations. And that impacts and changes the world for all of us, making it better for everyone.
You were a part of the Black Lives Matter movement. I'm going to come to that. I'm just going to go back to Georgie, who's also known as a water princess. Why? Because she has published in 2016 a children's book called The Water Princess. She's followed it up. It's been translated into other languages as well, right?
Different languages.
Different languages. So she's an author as well, activist, author, supermodel, role model. So Georgie, are there any other books in the offing that we can look at? And the publishing world, is that an interesting one to be in?
Well, The Water Princess, the reason why I actually wanted to start The Water Princess is when I went to see my sister and watch her walk at 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. to get water. When I got back to New York, I was watching a basketball game with a friend. And I told her, she asked me, how was your trip? I say, I was miserable. You know, I have to wake up every day at 2 a.m. to get water for my family, my sister. And she said, why don't we do something about it? I was like, okay, sounds good. What do you want to do? So we actually co-created this organization called Models for Water. And with Models for Water, what we were doing is that 100% of the funds we were raising, we were giving it to other organizations to build wells across Africa. But unfortunately, none of these organizations were working in my grandmother village. I didn't want to be that girl that is like, okay, because I raised these funds for you, you have absolutely to go to my grandmother's village and build a well. I tried to be humble. So after 2 years, my friend decided to dissolve the organization because we were at the peak of our modeling career, which I understand. Having an organization is a full-time job, and being a model as well, if you're serious about it, is a full-time job. So she dissolved the organization. I was completely heartbroken, thinking that my grandmother village still doesn't have access to clean water. So I decided to share my childhood story, The Water Princess, with the world, so that I can take the money from that book deal to build the first well in my grandmother village, which I did. I gave the money to an organization. That organization took the money, and they went to build the well somewhere else. So I was completely heartbroken again. That is when I decided to found the Georgie Badiel Foundation, because I understood that as an African woman, if I don't stand up for my people, no one else will do.
You spoke about money, and you know, from my experience as well, we see a lot of private interest in causes like this. A lot of billionaires, millionaires who talk a lot about investing in causes like this, but when it comes to doing it, they don't really walk the talk. So in terms of funding, what is this kind of support that projects like this should actually get? And it's probably a question that Kylie, you can also answer later, but if you can just, Georgie, and then you can, public-private partnerships, what's the kind of interest that they should be putting in more than just talk, because talk is cheap?
Absolutely. So the Georgie Badiel Foundation has partnered with New Day Impact, which have a portfolio of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And they have the number 6 portfolio, in which when you invest in clean drinking water, you give back. And I strongly believe that impact investing is basically the future. We should invest in what will actually change the world, right? We should make a difference in what we believe in.
Impact investing, I've often found that those two words are used very loosely and quite cliched. Sometimes I don't really think people actually know what it means. Do you also feel that way?
I think it's very simple.
Yeah.
I think people may pretend they don't know what it means, but I think it may be simple to me. I think, for example, at Pencils of Promise, in the past 15 years, we've invested $70 million in global education. We've built 600 schools. We've impacted 230,000 students and 875,000 community members. And my goal for the next 10 years is to invest $100 million to impact 570,000 additional students. And in order to do that, we need the investment of business, of individuals, of people who understand the ripple effect of investing in global education. The fact that that UNICEF teaches us that you offset costs for people, you allow people to have a longer or a larger opportunity to earn more money as they advance, as they grow older, which has a bigger impact on the economy. The World Bank tells us that you're able to alleviate burdens of healthcare costs when you invest in WASH programming, which we ensure when we make sure that people are healthy and they have clean water. So we understand the impact, the ripple effect impact of investment. We can understand it. And organizations like ours can share with you what those numbers really mean and what that means in truth and honesty. And what we need is the investment to make, because we know how to do it. And so we need the investment in order for it to be done. And that's how the world has changed. And that's how we advance.
See the mentality changing somewhat in Africa when it comes to impact investing and for-purpose initiatives? Do you see the mentality changing in Africa?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that in Africa in particular, there is I talk about this a lot, there's an impact, or there's an emphasis on community. where in other parts of the world I've noticed there's an emphasis on the individual. And so on the continent, you understand communities look out for one another. They understand the truth on the continent that we are all we have. And we are here for each other. And if it happens to one of us, it happens to all of us. And that is a lesson that I hope translates to other areas of the world, because it is what will continue to help us to evolve.
The power of the collective, so to speak, isn't it? Georgie, can I just ask you, there was a little bit of an interlude there. I mean, you said you took a flight to Paris. I'm just going back in time. You stayed there for a year. At the age of 19, please tell the audience, how was it like going from a village in Burkina Faso, finding yourself in Paris with no one else but yourself to look after?
First of all, one thing that I've always think is when I was younger is, yes, that's true that I was born into these circumstances, but they will not be my circumstances when I grow old. So the way that I actually started modeling is that at 14 years old, my father told me he won't be able to afford for my education. So I have to find something else to do. So I started to sell toffee in schools, hats, so that I can afford my education, until I realized that everything I was actually saving will never be enough to afford for my education. So one day I was walking down the street and a guy saw me, say, "You tall, you're beautiful, you can become a model." And my first question to him was like, "Did there is money in modeling?" He said, "Yes, you can become like Naomi Campbell or Kate Moss." I said, "Really?" All right, that is actually how I started modeling. So when I went to Paris for the first time, all I was thinking was like, all right, I am just going to become the #1 model on earth. That was my spirit. But unfortunately, I have to be honest, I did not know about racism. There is something I have to face. I didn't have family. I have to actually learn to live without the love and the warmness of my family outside of home. But most importantly is I have the strength of not going back to poverty. I was like, it's not happening. I will fight whatever I'm going to endure. I will endure it, but I'm going to be out of poverty.
Great. So we've less than 2 minutes. So can we tell the young audience here, I mean, both of you, what is your advice, words of wisdom to this young audience in 2 sentences?
I would say that don't settle for being poor if you were born poor. Believe in yourself. You can achieve anything, but working hard is the key.
Hello, that's great advice. I would say that my advice is to understand that you have personal power, and you have to remember to be empowered, and every choice that you make should lead you in the direction that you want to go. You have a choice to become who you want to be, as you said, and we can be values driven as we get there. So never let anyone undermine your personal power. Yeah, that's it.
That's a great message to leave this audience with. Kylie Scales and Georgie Liberty, Badiel-Liberty. Thank you so much. Thank you to the audience as well. You've been absolutely awesome. Thank you.